We're finding out everything. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I am your host Connie, and today we're here with my blind reaction to episode 17 of Dr. Stone. So last time we started to find out the history of this village, of Ishigami Village, and we learned that it all kind of started with Senku's father. I mean, it kind of makes sense because my theory on like, oh, someone who just knew Senku it didn't really work if you really looked into it. But the idea that Senku's father, and that because of the same name and everything, he just named it after himself, or even the others on the space station named it after him. It's like that just checks out more. And we can clearly see that the others on the space station are the ancestors of the current villagers. We can see who Kohaku and her sister are related to. We can see who Kinro and Ginro are related to. It's pretty obvious. Now we don't know like the full story yet. Like all we know right now is that the astronauts went up to the International Space Station, and while they were up there, the petrification happened. And they actually saw it happening. Like they saw the physical like change sweeping over the globe. Which shows that it's, as I said last time, not just like a visual representation for us as the viewers to, connect to it and understand what's going on. That was actually fucking happening. Which is, I believe I said it last time, pretty wild in anime. I believe I compared it to armament hockey from One Piece. In a lot of anime, when there's some kind of like beam or something like that, a wave of like some kind of energy that flows over something, it's usually like showcased in a certain way for us as viewers. But in this situation, it was actually like physically happening, like literally looked like that to all the people watching. So, yeah, they found out that the entire world's been petrified and they were only safe because they were, well, off world at the time. And so now they're talking about going back, which makes sense. It's like you can't just stay up in the ISS forever. But the question is, how is this going to go down? Now, as I brought up last time, thoughts on this are that they might not start Ishigami Village right away, and the initial location they settle in is more than likely not going to be where Ishigami Village is currently. Because that's just logical. For one reason or another, they'll probably set up in one place, but maybe be driven out of there. Or maybe even they won't be driven out of there. Maybe it'll just come down to their descendants being driven out and having to switch locations. That's very possible too. It could happen due to wild animals or erosion or all kinds of reasons. The thing is, it's been like, I don't know, I don't remember the exact number, but like what, thousands of years since this first happened? It's like, yeah, shit's going to be very different, and erosion will definitely have occurred. So it's like, even if they were in the same location, it's almost guaranteed that that location was not a peninsula like it is currently. It's almost guaranteed that there was more land surrounding that area, and it was not like this little peninsula with a little bridge that connected to it. Land bridge, but still. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Now, we definitely have our explanation for how how this group kind of like procreated and, eventually created what would be this village and everything. Because we have what are basically three sets of couples. We have the Russian couple who are there. Then we have obviously Byakuya and the pop star girl, who are very clearly like shown to have chemistry. And then we have the other two as well. The very serious guy who is very clearly Kinro and Ginro's ancestor. And then the girl, Connie, can't forget her name because it's literally mine. She has kind of a similar hair color to Kinro. So it's also pretty, and not even kind of, it's the same hair color. So it's pretty clear that she and the other dude end up like, you know, procreating down the line and everything. It's gonna be interesting to see how this works because obviously, I stated last time as well that with the way genetics works, they wouldn't like realistically look this much like their ancestors. The current villagers wouldn't look this much like their ancestors. That's silly. That's just not how it works. But I'm sure that's just a physical representation for, again, us as viewers to understand, like before it's even said, that these people are the ancestors of these characters we've grown to know over all this time. So yeah, I'm assuming we're going to get a lot more explanation this time. It's going to be interesting to see what more is revealed, anything that I might not be expecting, for example. And I'm hoping that we get some like notable information here in regards to certain things. But I'm wondering what Senku is going to think of all of this. It's going to be very interesting to find that out, too. So, we're going to get into this and hope for the best and see what this episode has in store. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black, then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, while it's made very clear, and let's be honest, there's not really any other explanation it could be, that the astronauts are the ancestors of the current day Ishigami villagers. While that's made very clear, I'm still thrown off by the fact that Byakuya and Senku are not related. Just going in the entire relation thing of this episode because of how notable that is. And again, with the fact that they all had the appearances that matched the current day descendants. Listen, is it possible for people who are not related to look alike? Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of actors, for example, that people point out look a lot alike. Will Arnett and God, what is his fucking name? Patrick something. Hold on. Patrick Wilson. Will Arnett and Patrick Wilson are two actors that are in no way related, but look almost exactly alike. And let me see if I can try to show you here. I turned down the lighting on my phone so it'll show up a little better. It's blurry, it's like not focusing properly, but yeah, Will Arnett and Patrick Wilson look almost exactly alike. They could be twins, absolutely. But they're not related in any way. And there's others uh, in that same kind of boat, and just of course non-famous people too. It kind of brings up the idea of like doppelgangers. There's the theory that everyone in the world has at least one person elsewhere in the world that they look exactly like. And a lot of people will use the term doppelgangers to describe that. And whether or not you believe in that or anything is just kind of up to you, I guess. But there is no doubt that there are people out there who do look eerily alike. And it's even been pointed out that there are people throughout the past, like the distant past, who some people nowadays look eerily similar to. The thing is, when you consider the amount of humans that would have lived throughout history, you have to consider that some people are just going to look alike. It's just how things work. And sometimes those people will be alive during the same time. But the thing is, when you have a series like this, when you have like an anime or a cartoon or a video game, a comic, a piece of visual media, when you have two characters who look that much alike to where they're basically clones of each other, with the only difference of one being older, you cannot just come out and say that they're not biologically related. Again, in terms of like writing and character design work for a series, that just can't work. If you made him look notably different, or at least different enough to where it's like, okay, I could see that he's his father, but they're not exactly the same, that would be one thing. And again, the white hair I can very much get over, because Byakuya had the different colored tips, and I honestly Senku does too, but it that you can get over just because of age and everything. And multiple people can obviously have the same color hair anyway. That's nothing. But the faces are pretty much carbon copies of each other. Again, the only difference being that Byakuya is older. You know, has the facial hair and everything. He's older. That's really the only difference. And you're trying to tell us that they're not biologically related? I'm sorry, but I don't believe you. Whoever you are, mysterious creator of this series. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. If we're going on the design, then I don't believe that they're not related, because again, they look exactly alike. And if you want to go solely on Byakuya and Senku's words here, then I don't believe that was his father. Because if he and his father are not related, then that's not his father. Because, again, they look too much alike. No. I'm sorry. If we're supposed to believe that despite looking exactly alike, they're not related, like, by blood, then I'm sorry, that's bad writing. And again, just like I'm sorry that I paused in the middle of this reaction to rant about this, I do apologize for starting off these afterthoughts just ranting about this again. But I need to get this out. Because it bothers me. From a writing perspective, from a design perspective, it bothers me. And I mean, I'll be able to get over it because the rest of the writing in this show has been fantastic. And I doubt this is going to have any big impact on the series. But it is a genuine, like, just poor moment of the show. It is a poorly handled moment. And I'm sure it was like this in the manga too, so I can't just say it's just the anime. That's just not a well, like, written, well handled um plot point, I guess you could say. Um and I don't mean to make it sound like I don't like this episode, because it's very much the opposite. This was phenomenal. Both last episode and this episode were fantastic. It's just that one thing that annoys me that much. But let us talk about the rest of this. So we see what happens afterwards. Byakuya is talking about going back down, but he needs two other people to go with him because of, what they have the fuel for and everything. Um, However, Shamil basically tells him, fuck that, you've got too much to live for if this goes wrong. I'm going. And so Shamil, Connie, and Lillian are the first three to head down. They go down to basically test if they're going to be petrified upon entering Earth's atmosphere and landing, which they find out pretty quickly not the case. However, they do land in the water, and they land upside down, unfortunately, which means they can't open the hatch because they'll drown, and they're just not in a good position to do much of anything. Byakuya and the others decide to come down, land on a nearby island, and basically make their way out to get to the other three. And they manage to do so successfully. They land on the beach of the island, which, they almost kind of missed it. But if they landed in the water that close, they probably would have been fine. But they land on the island, and they happen to find a boat there because there was a stranded survivor there before, he was turned to stone. And I assume he was, getting ready to leave. Like, that boat seemed pretty well prepared, like, probably trying to escape from the island, probably having been stranded there for a while. But everything just went wrong at the wrong time for him. So Byakuya took the boat out, got the other three, and brought them back to the island, and they mostly stayed and died there. Over the course of 3 years, they started, having kids and, pairing up outside of just the two who are already a married couple. And it was obviously the pairings we expected. There was no surprises there. But yeah, they started having kids and everything. But Connie ended up contracting pneumonia, which is an absolutely treatable disease normally. However, because of the situation they were in, they didn't have any access to antibiotics and whatnot, so they had no way to treat her. Because of this, the Russian couple, again, I think it's Yakov, and I can't remember the wife's name, but they went, they went on the boat and just took off towards the mainland to try and find antibiotics, to find what they could to help. And they never returned. We don't know what happened to them. We have no fucking clue. And unless that's ever revealed, which it probably won't be, honestly, they probably never saw any of the inhabitants of that island again. So we have no idea what happened to them. But meanwhile on the island, Connie died from her illness. And Shamil soon after had contracted it as well and also died, leaving Byakuya alone there with the kids until he died. And all that was left was the kids. Now, you could maybe say, like, oh, they probably came back because how would the kids raise themselves and everything? You'd be surprised, like, what kids could do. But I I could believe that they might have come back and of course found it that it was way too late. Because the thing is that that one grave there was Byakuya's, right? How who buried him? Are we supposed to believe the kids buried him? I'm kind of thinking maybe not. I'm kind of even if just one of the other two returned, I'm thinking at least one probably did. We just don't know that for sure. We have no evidence one way or the other. I mean, the fact that the grave that Byakuya's grave was so like, poorly made compared to the others had, rounded gravestones with their names on them. Byakuya's was, a shapeless marker. That could mean the children did it, but those kids are like what, 5 to 10? It's like, do we really think they did that? Hell, they might have all been. I mean, we know the original few that we saw were three because it was 3 years later, but I presume it like went a couple more years after that. So I think it like the oldest probably was only like 5 at that point. I really don't think they were that old at all. So someone, I feel like someone almost had to come back, but again, we just don't have any evidence of that. Anything to support that. Which is really interesting when you think about it, too. But in the end, like, we know that they continued to survive and everything. And I'm kind of wondering, like, obviously Ishigami Village isn't on an island. And yes, in over 2,000 years since, the landscape of things will have changed. Sea levels will have changed. Everything like that. I do not think that this island is in any way, shape, or form connected. But then again, it has to be, doesn't it? The sea levels will then would have then fallen quite a bit, wouldn't they have? Because if this is because the graves, they visited the graves, and they didn't travel across the water. Like let me look at this real quick. I'm gonna mute this for obvious reasons, so you don't hear any music playing. But but Ruri brings him to the graves of his father and his father's, found family. Like, we see those 4 graves there. And it then shows it in the present day, and obviously the landscape of everything is different. Again, even if they're not on that peninsula, they are in the general area still. And it didn't seem like they were in the peninsula. They left because everyone's partying and all on the peninsula. So they left the peninsula. They went like still semi nearby, obviously. They didn't go that far, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's like that definitely means the sea levels would have had to fall. That definitely means that if they can walk to what used to be that island, the sea levels would have fallen, right? It's really interesting to think about this. I kind of wish we had like a map. I wonder if there is. I almost kind of don't want to look it up just because of spoilers. But, I mean, if it says certain things like, this is this encampment, I wouldn't necessarily know what that means. I just kind of want to see if there is a map here. Okay, I'm seeing what looks like a map here. But it's not really helping. It's just showing like manga panels and stuff. Um, Let me see. I'm just gonna look up. Is Ishigami Village the island? Hopefully it'll put together that idea. Okay. I'm seeing something here that just mentions season 3, so I'm skipping that. I don't want to look up too much more, though. You know, because this might get answered, I guess. I don't know. Let me just look up one more thing here. I'm avoiding everything that I can. Also, Ishigami Village isn't just a single peninsula, it's two islets. So it's actually like double islands that are kind of like connected via the bridges. So it's actually not a peninsula. I kept calling it a peninsula. I was wrong, which kind of makes sense, honestly, that I was wrong. Because it's not land bridges that are connecting to the main part of the mainland. Yeah. And yeah, there's the two parts. There's the main village, and then there's like the chief's hut and everything on the other one. Yeah. Okay, let's. Okay, here's the thing about the village graveyard. It's a short walk away from the village. So yeah, it's not in the village. It's at the bottom of a ravine. It says here. Okay. I'm not seeing anything specific here. And again, I don't want to look up too much else because I don't know if any of that is actually spoilers. But yeah, really interesting nonetheless. I'm very curious, like, if there is spoilers, if this kind of thing is ever revealed. I'm very curious about that. So yeah, um, interesting, interesting for sure. But yeah, like outside of the one notable issue I had, I really liked this episode, and seeing Senku actually take a moment to, albeit briefly, but still cry was a great moment because Senku is a very logical guy who, yes, he definitely has emotions. Obviously, that's been shown. But he usually doesn't let himself fall to his emotions. He tries to keep himself from doing so, especially in this stone world because he wants to, be able to help everybody. And he feels like he can't do that if he, gets too emotional all the time. But he lets himself fall here. Mind you, he basically has Ruri head back before he does break down, but he does briefly break down and cry. He cries for his father, even if they're not blood related. He's thankful. And he's emotional over this story. And that's great to see. It's great to see this side to Senku we just don't get to see much of. And I really like that. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention here, of course, is the ending. After everything, we see that Tsukasa is on his way. That he and his army are on their way. And this was inevitably going to be the last arc of this season. Like, obviously, the battle against Tsukasa was always going to be where this season was going to end. That's obvious. So the question kind of comes down to, how is this going to go? Because we know who is on our side. And Tsukasa, I am very sure, is aware that what's his face magician dude, I can't think of his name right now, But I very much believe he's aware that he's a traitor. He knows that Senku is alive. He's coming for them. And we're going to be leading into this big confrontation, possibly even a full-out battle. It's going to be really interesting to see how they close this out, because there's like, I don't know what, 6 episodes left? Something like that? Something like that. So in these last few episodes, they're going to have to close everything else out. We're finally going to get to see our other friends again. They're going to be back, and you know they're going to be revealed to have been spies this entire time. So it's going to be it's going to be cool to see kind of all of this come to a head, all of this that had been set up. Because this entire past arc with Ishigami Village and, you know, increasing the Kingdom of Science, this was all about preparing to fight Tsukasa. Like, that's why Senku needed to, you know, build up the kingdom. That was the entire point of it. He needed to be able to not just, you know, further science in the world to be able to help people, but to be able to defend against Tsukasa and his ideals. So, yeah, of course this was coming next. I'm not surprised by that. But this is very much the end of this arc. And I kind of see now why they started the new opening earlier than I would have thought they probably should have. But I still think they should have waited till the episode after the tournament itself actually ended. I still stand by that they started like an episode or two too early. But there was no way they were going to like wait until this arc was over. That wouldn't have worked. But yeah, this is definitely going to close out pretty well. I think this final arc is going to definitely be a big one. And I could see it going in a couple different ways. Because Senku, even if he and the Kingdom of Science lose, they're gonna get away. So that's one option. Senku and the Kingdom of Science escape. They're not running away beforehand, so they would escape like either during or after the battle. Whether Tsukasa lets them or not is another story that could, again, kind of go either way. The second option is that Tsukasa loses and is killed, which I don't see happening. For one, that would go against Senku's ideals. And considering he's the chief, he would also tell the rest of the villagers not to kill. Senku does not want to kill anyone. His idea of the right thing here would be to get the others under Tsukasa's control onto their side. And that kind of brings in the third option for where this could go. The Kingdom of Science wins, Tsukasa loses, and Tsukasa is redeemed. And I think this is the most likely option. Because I don't see the Kingdom of Science losing. They've been built up so much that this entire arc has been most of this season. And it's been built up so much that I don't see Senku and the Kingdom of Science losing here. And again, I don't see them killing anyone, because that would go against Senku's ideals. Now, could someone or some people from the kingdom end up dying from the village? Yes. Tsukasa and his people could end up committing murder here. But I still think it's most likely that in the end, Senku will get through to Tsukasa somehow. Maybe through the help of his friends and everyone, through just the Kingdom of Science somehow convincing them, whatever the case may be. I think they're going to get through to Tsukasa, And I think he is going to see the error of his ways. I don't know how it's going to be done, but I think it is going to be done. And that Tsukasa is going to join the Kingdom of Science along with all of his followers. I truly believe that's what's going to happen, because that just feels like what has been built up to and set up for the most. So that's my thoughts. Obviously, it could end up surprising me and going a completely different direction, but I still think that's the most logical route for this to take. It just seems like it makes the most sense. But I've been surprised by anime before. Things have definitely gone in directions I did not see coming. So, who knows? Who knows? I'm very excited though. I do want to say real quick though. Obviously, we've still got plenty of time left before we get to this. But just like with every show we really do on here, after we finish the season, we will take a break. And considering we didn't take any breaks during this season, just because I've been that into it, which is a very good sign, by the way. Because we didn't take any breaks during the season, the break between seasons 1 and 2 of Dr. Stone might be a little longer. It's not going to be a case of like, oh, I'm going to come back to it like within a month or so. No, I don't think it's going to be that soon at all. I don't think it's going to be even close to that soon. There's going to be time between. It's going to be, I guess, more akin to something like the Symphogear reactions, like between seasons 1 and 2 of that. There's going to be months in between. But I will obviously be getting back to Dr. Stone, because unless somehow this final arc shits the bed that badly, which I don't think is possible at this point, I really do love this series. It has impressed me in ways that I just did not think was going to happen. It's kind of like Fire Force in that regard. Like I've said before, Fire Force impressed me like that and really caught me off guard by how much I ended up liking it. But I'm going to say right off the bat, I like this a lot more than Fire Force. That might be an unpopular opinion. I actually have no fucking clue if it is or not. But I feel like Fire Force has a lot more issues than this show. And I just generally enjoy this more. It's just more entertaining to watch for me. And that might be just how it is now. Who knows how season 2 and so on will go. But yeah, just wanted to let you all know what the plans for that were before we even get to that. So, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode? What did you think of all the revelations and even the things that just weren't revealed about this? Let me know your thoughts down below, and as always, no spoilers. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See you all next time.